You are dying not from a lack of air, but from the suffocating weight of a version of yourself that does not exist. You sit in the dark, paralyzed by the shimmering ghost of a perfect life, a perfect career, and a perfect start, while the reality of your existence decays in the shadow of that very idealism. Perfection is not a standard, it is a clinical diagnosis of fear. It is the most sophisticated form of self-sabotage ever devised by the human ego, a golden cage that feels like a sanctuary but functions as a tomb. You tell yourself that you are waiting for the right moment, the right resources, or the right clarity, but the truth is far more sinister. You are using the pursuit of excellence as a shield to protect yourself from the vulnerability of being seen as a beginner. You have become a curator of potential rather than a creator of reality. Think of the architect who spends 40 years refining the blueprint of a cathedral, but never lays a single stone. He dies an artist in his own mind, but to the world he is nothing but a man who owned a very expensive pencil. This is the paradox of the perfect start. You believe that by aiming for the peak, you are showing ambition, but in the realm of psychology, you are actually exhibiting a deep-seated cowardice. You are afraid of the mess. You are afraid of the unpolished version of your soul being judged by a world that thrives on consumption. Jim Rohn once noted that the soil doesn't care how much you want the harvest. It only cares if you planted the seed. But you are still examining the seed for microscopic flaws while the season for planting quietly slips into the frost of winter. History is littered with the corpses of perfectionists who were outpaced by the imperfect men of action. Consider the brutal pragmatism of Machiavelli. He understood that power does not belong to the man with the best plan, but to the man who can navigate the chaos of the moment. While the scholar debates the ethics of a move, the prince has already conquered the city. The prince is messy, he is flawed, and he makes 1,000 mistakes, but he is the one holding the scepter. You, however, are still in the library, polishing your armor while the war is being won by men in blood-stained rags. There is a specific kind of arrogance in your delay. You believe you are too important to fail, too refined to be seen struggling. You have mistaken your paralysis for high standards, when in reality, it is nothing more than the vanity of the weak. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet, a mechanism within your own brain that rewards you for the fantasy of perfection while punishing you for the labor of progress. When you visualize your perfect future, the body, the bank account, the impact, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. You feel the satisfaction of the win without the scar tissue of the fight. This is a cognitive trap. You are literally getting high on the idea of success, which drains the hunger required to actually achieve it. The man who accepts good enough for today and pushes forward is the one who eventually reaches the extraordinary. Progress is a jagged, ugly, and humiliating process. It is the artist's first charcoal sketch that looks like a child's scrawl. It is the entrepreneur's first product that breaks within an hour. It is the speaker's first presentation where his voice cracks and his palms sweat. The world sees the masterpiece, but the masterpiece is merely the final layer of 1,000 beautiful failures. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, didn't write his meditations for a public audience to admire his wisdom. He wrote them in the mud of a military camp, surrounded by the stench of death and the cold of the Danube. He wasn't trying to be a perfect philosopher. He was trying to survive the day without losing his soul. He focused on the next right action, the next small bit of progress. He knew that the universe is change, and to resist change in the name of a perfect static state is to resist life itself. You are trying to be a statue in a world that demands you be a river. A statue is perfect, but it is dead. A river is muddy, it is chaotic, and it carries debris, but it moves. And in that movement lies its power. We live in a digital panopticon where we are constantly shown the after photo, but never the during. We see the highlight reels of a billion lives and conclude that our behind the scenes footage is a failure. This creates a psychological chasm. We look at the polished finish of a Jim Rohn seminar and forget the years he spent in obscurity, failing at sales, struggling to articulate his thoughts, and facing the crushing weight of his own inadequacies. He didn't become a master by avoiding the mess. He became a master because he was willing to be the fool longer than anyone else. The fool is the precursor to the savior. If you aren't willing to be a laughingstock for a year, you will never be an icon for a century. Every time you choose to wait for perfection, you are casting a vote for your own irrelevance. You are telling the universe that your ego is more important than your contribution. This is the dark side of the high achiever mindset. It's a form of narcissism. You think the world is watching you, waiting for you to stumble so they can mock you. Newsflash, the world doesn't care about you. People are too busy drowning in their own insecurities to notice your mediocre first draft. This realization should be liberating, yet you use it as a reason to hide. You use the vastness of the world as an excuse for your own smallness. But even as we discuss the virtue of the messy start, there is a hidden cost to this philosophy that most are too afraid to mention, a price that must be paid in the currency of your own identity. To choose progress over perfection is to accept the death of your idealized self. You have to kill the version of you that could be great and become the version of you that is mediocre. This is a psychic trauma. We cling to our potential because as long as it remains potential, it is infinite. Once we take action, it becomes finite. It becomes measurable. It becomes something that can be critiqued. Many choose to live in the infinite world of what if, because the finite world of what is feels like a prison. But the prison isn't the reality. The prison is the dream. The dream is what keeps you stagnant. The dream is what keeps you broke. The dream is what keeps you lonely. Jim Rohn spoke about the discipline of the few versus the excuses of the many. The many excuse themselves because the conditions aren't perfect. The few realize that conditions are never perfect. If you wait for all the lights to turn green before you leave your house, you will never start your journey. You must learn to drive in the dark, seeing only as far as your headlights reach, trusting that as you move forward, more of the road will be revealed. This is the essence of faith, not a religious faith, but a functional faith in the process of iteration. Consider the law of the harvest. You cannot bargain with the soil. You cannot say, give me a perfect wheat stalk, and then I will plant the seed. You must give to the earth first in the form of labor, sweat, and the risk of a bad season. Only then, through the slow and imperfect process of growth, does the harvest appear. You are trying to skip the growing season because you find it aesthetically displeasing. You want the golden fields without the mud on your boots. But the mud is where the nutrients are. The mistakes are where the data is. Without the feedback loop of failure, you are flying blind in a storm of your own making. However, the most terrifying realization is not that you are failing to start, but that your delay is actually a slow motion suicide of your future potential. Every day you don't act, the muscle of your will atrophies. You are training yourself to be a spectator. You are becoming a connoisseur of other people's work, a critic who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. The dark psychology of the critic is that he attacks the imperfect work of others to justify his own inaction. If he can prove that your progress is flawed, he feels better about his own stagnation. Do not listen to the critics, and more importantly, do not be the critic of your own soul. The internal critic is a liar who speaks in the voice of your parents, your teachers, and your worst enemies. It tells you that if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. This is a demonic whisper designed to keep you small. So true power comes from the realization that done is better than perfect. A finished project that is 70% of what you imagined is infinitely more valuable than a 100% perfect idea that exists only in your neocortex. In the real world, 70% is the passing grade. In the real world, 70% gets you paid. In the real world, 70% builds a bridge that people can actually cross. The remaining 30% is found in the doing, not in the thinking. You cannot think your way into a new way of acting. You must act your way into a new way of thinking. This is the fundamental law of transformation. As you sit there listening to these words, you might feel a flicker of motivation. But motivation is a fickle mistress. It leaves when the room gets cold. What you need is the cold, hard steel of discipline. It's the discipline to be low quality until you can be quality. Jim Rohn famously said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Working on yourself doesn't mean reading more books. It means subjecting yourself to more reality. It means putting your ideas into the marketplace and letting the marketplace punch them in the face. It means taking the perfect version of your dream and dragging it through the dirt until it hardens into something real. But what if I told you that the fear of being not enough is actually a shadow cast by an even greater fear, the fear of who you might become if you actually succeeded? The success is terrifying because it brings responsibility. If you remain a perfectionist who never starts, you can always maintain the illusion that you could have been a king if you had only tried. It is a comfortable lie. But if you start and you make progress and you eventually win, you lose the right to complain. You lose the right to be a victim. You lose the purity of your struggle. Many people choose the perfection of their misery over the infection of their success because misery is familiar. Progress is alien. Progress demands that you shed your old skin, and shedding skin is a painful, bloody process. The elite don't wait for inspiration. They follow a schedule. They understand that the muse is a worker who only shows up when you are already at the desk. If you wait for the perfect mood, you are a slave to your biology. If you act regardless of your mood, you are the master of your destiny. This is the principle of progress in its rawest form. It is the willingness to be bored, to be frustrated, and to be mediocre day after day until the cumulative effect of those small gains creates a landslide of achievement. It is the compound interest of effort. So think about the sheer violence of a seedling breaking through concrete. It isn't a perfect process. The plant is twisted, it's scarred, and it has to fight against the crushing weight of the world just to see the sun. It doesn't ask for a clear path. It creates one through the sheer persistence of its growth. You are that seedling, but you have convinced yourself that you should only grow if the concrete is removed first. The concrete will never be removed. The resistance is the very thing that gives you the strength to stand once you break through. Your flaws are not obstacles. They are the grip that allows you to climb. So as we reach the deeper layers of this philosophy, we must confront the ultimate truth. Your time is a finite resource that is being liquidated every second you hesitate. You are trading your life for nothingness in exchange for the comfort of not being judged. You are worried about the perfection of a life that is currently 80 degrees C towards its end. The clock does not care about your high standards. The grave does not care about your most masterpieces. The only thing that remains is the impact of your actions, however flawed they may have been. So burn the blueprints that you are too afraid to build. Embrace the ugly start. Write the bad sentence. Run the slow mile. Launch the flawed business. The world is waiting for your contribution, not your perfection, good enough. Today, not your flawless, never. Stop being a spectator in the theater of your own life. The curtain is already up, the lights are blinding, and the audience is waiting. It doesn't matter if you forget your lines or trip over your feet. All that matters is that you stay on the